Good morning all, welcome to my channel Study Ka Enzyme, and today we will continue with the second part of life processes, another part after digestion that you could have seen earlier. Now here we will be looking at the respiration part. Alright, so looking here at this slide, what is respiration? So respiration is a biochemical process by which organisms release energy from the food. So we have taken the energy by the process of nutrition where the food is digested. Now this digested food is now broken down into different components, and these components will now give us energy on being oxidized. On being oxidized means when oxygen reacts with glucose and then it produces energy along with water and carbon dioxide. So giving up of energy when food particles, when the digested food materials are further oxidized is known as respiration. So this is very essential for life processes, as we have seen earlier also. This is one of the essential life process. And the main purpose of this is to produce energy in the form of ATP. Now there's an activity in the NCERT book to show that carbon dioxide is given out during the respiration. For this, you take a test tube and then add freshly prepared lime water, calcium hydroxide to it, and you blow air through the nose or the mouth to it. And then soon you will see that this lime water will turn milky. This lime water, which is little translucent, it will turn milky. Turning this into milky will show the presence of carbon dioxide, because we have seen in chemistry also when calcium hydroxide reacts with carbon dioxide, it produces calcium carbonate. So, and the color changes to milky white. There's another activity, as you can see in the adjacent. You blow the air with the help of a pitchkari and see the difference now. When you blow the air with the help of a pitchkari, then you will notice that the change in color is little slower. The turning of the calcium hydroxide into this milky part will be little slower, and this shows that air has less percentage of carbon dioxide as compared to the exhaled air from the process of respiration. So one thing to proceed and to take care of is the difference between breathing and respiration. We have been knowing about this since very earlier classes, that breathing is only a physical process where you inhale and you exhale. You take the air in and you give the air out. This process, physical process, where there is no relation with energy production, energy storage, is known as breathing. Whereas respiration is a biochemical process where, with the help of the energy, with the help of the oxygen that you have gained by the process of breathing, you oxidize your food. You break down the food or you burn the food to produce energy, which is stored in the form of ATP. So breathing only has to deal with gases, only dealing with the entry and the exit of gases, whereas respiration is concerned with the process of glucose, how is it oxidized with the help of different enzymes to produce energy. Next we have type of respiration. So there are two types of respiration on the presence and absence of oxygen. When this respiration happens in the presence of oxygen, it is called aerobic respiration. As you can see here, this will be aerobic respiration. When you require oxygen and then glucose is converted into carbon dioxide, water, and ATP will be produced. This occurs in both plants as well as animals. The second type of respiration that we are discussing here will be anaerobic respiration. And anaerobic respiration will not require oxygen, will happen in the absence of oxygen. So in NCRT we have been given two type of anaerobic respiration. One happening in the muscles, when in the muscle cells there is lack of oxygen and then lactic acid is produced along with carbon dioxide. Lactic acid is produced and less amount of ATP is produced. You will see ahead when you go in further classes, only two ATP molecules are produced. Only two ATP molecules will be produced in case of anaerobic respiration happening in the muscle cells. Only lactic acid is produced. When there is anaerobic respiration happening in the yeast, and then you see the production of ethanol and carbon dioxide. Again, there also two ATP molecules are produced. Very less amount of energy is produced. But if you talk of aerobic respiration, 36 ATP molecules are produced. So you can here only imagine how much energy efficient this aerobic process is. Children, you also would have seen when you climb the stairs. When you climb the stairs or after a rigorous exercise, you would have felt exhausted because of the anaerobic respiration, and you see muscle cramps in the legs, right? So this is because of the anaerobic respiration which is happening in the legs. Anaerobic respiration and the formation of lactic acid is occurring. Okay. There is also an activity in this anaerobic respiration. If you take a test tube and you add glucose solution or any fruit juice to it, and you add yeast and cover the end of the test tube, one mouth of the test tube, with a core containing a bent tube, right? So this bent tube will be carrying whatever gas is produced in the reaction, and then if with the help of this delivery tube, if you transfer it to another beaker containing lime water, then you will notice that lime water will keep on turning milky. Why? Again the same thing, anaerobic respiration is happening, so carbon dioxide is produced, and this carbon dioxide which is produced will now be transferred to the another test tube, and this will turn calcium hydroxide or lime water milky. Okay, this is aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration here, um, what will happen? Glucose will be oxidized to produce 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, 6 molecules of water, and 36 to 38 molecules of ATP. Actually, 38 molecules are produced and 2 are again consumed in one of the process of aerobic respiration. So we can say 36 molecules or 38 molecules they are produced in case of aerobic respiration. And another important thing that we all must notice is this aerobic respiration taking place in mitochondria. So you may be asked this question, anaerobic respiration, we have discussed the same. Anaerobic respiration happening in the absence of oxygen. In yeast, it produces what? Lactic acid. In yeast, anaerobic respiration in yeast will lead to the production of ethanol and carbon dioxide, whereas in muscles it leads to the formation of lactic acid. This is very important. Children, this diagram that you can see is very important in NCRT, and this is usually asked in board examination in one or the other form. So here we are discussing the steps of respiration. So this respiration that you see in a one single equation glucose breaking down into carbon dioxide and water does not happen at all in one single step. Rather, there are a number of steps that you will study in your grade 11. First step is glycolysis. Glycolysis is made up of two terms, glyco and lysis. Glyco means glucose and lysis means breakdown. So first step is glycolysis, where glucose is first broken down into the very first compound, 3-carbon compound, which is pyruvate. And this happens in the cytoplasm. And this step is common in both aerobic as well as anaerobic respiration. Second is the next step, that is Krebs cycle, that you don't have to study in grade 10. This will be studied in grade 11, but this Krebs cycle is the next further part of aerobic respiration, right? So what you need to study here is glucose being broken down into pyruvate, which is common in aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Further, when this pyruvate gets oxygen, it undergoes aerobic respiration and leads to the formation of carbon dioxide and water along with 38 ATP molecules. And in case this pyruvate lacks oxygen, in case of muscles, it leads to the formation of lactic acid. In case of yeast, it leads to the formation of ethanol and carbon dioxide. Remember, children, in lactic acid, in case of muscles, no carbon dioxide is produced along with lactic acid, whereas in yeast, carbon dioxide is produced along with the ethanol. This is utilized in baking also. The dough that you see being risen up in case of making idlis, in case of making breads, cakes in bakeries. So there also anaerobic respiration take place and carbon dioxide is released. Now what is this ATP? ATP that we have been discussing. ATP is the energy currency, adenosine triphosphate. Here we have one adenosine molecule. Along with that, 3 phosphate groups are attached. Okay? Now you understood the term anaerobic. Now you understand this term ATP, adenosine, and triphosphate. This is the energy storage molecule. This is the energy currency, right? For example, I work in some industry. I work in an organization and I work throughout the month, and at the end I get check as my salary. So that's stored in my bank and I will use that money as and when needed. Same ways, जब ग्लूकोज ऑक्सीडाइज होता है तो क्या प्रोड्यूस होता है? Carbon dioxide, water and ATP. So ATP has lot of energy captured in that, and as soon as you do any work, you will hydrolyze that ATP. You will keep on consuming that ATP to do all the energy process. Now you're even listening to me, blinking your eyes, writing something. So in all these processes, you are consuming ATPs that are produced during the respiration. And one molecule of glucose will lead to the production of almost 38 ATPs in case of aerobic respiration. So now we have understood the terms aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Now we will study the human respiratory system, which is very important, and it begins, this is the diagram from NCERT, and it begins with nose. Then you have pharynx, larynx, which is the sound box. Larynx is the sound box. Pharynx is a common opening in the digestive as well as the respiratory system. Then you have trachea. Trachea, which is also called windpipe. So this question often comes in exam. Tracheas trachea is like supported by cartilaginous rings. So the question often comes, why is trachea covered with cartilage rings around it? And the answer to it is to prevent the trachea from collapsing. When you would have seen when you water garden with hose pipe or any silicone pipe and there is less pressure, so you would have seen that the hose pipe shrinks, it collapses. Same ways हमारा trachea जो है that's also a muscular organ, और ये muscular organ collapse ना कर जाए, so we have cartilaginous rings around it. Then you have bronchi and bronchioles, right? Bronchi, which gets divided into so many bronchioles ending into the alveoli. And these bronchi and bronchioles, they enter into the respiratory system main organ, which is lungs. Alveoli are the last end points of the respiratory system where gas exchange takes place. And last is this inverted leg structure beneath the lungs, which is called diaphragm. We will study this role of diaphragm in the process of inhalation and exhalation. Now, in physics, now we have mechanism of breathing. So before we begin with this, I want to tell you one procedure, one concept of physics where we know that pressure is inversely proportional to volume, right? When there is more pressure, then you have less volume, right? आपने ये physics में पढ़ रखा है, जैसे एक पेन prick करते हो, then it is more painful if you prick yourself with the blunt end of the pen, then it is less painful. Why? Because the surface area in case of a pointed pen was very less, right? So here we will discuss about pressure and volume. जैसे अगर एक balloon है and you compress that balloon, तो क्या होगा, आपने balloon की volume कम कर दी and the pressure inside the balloon will rise up, right? And there's another balloon जिसका volume बहुत ज़्यादा है, ठीक है, which is inflated and it will have less pressure. Why? Because volume is more, so pressure will be less. Now consider the lungs to be like that only, that balloon. So when during inhalation, I want you all to take a long breath. I want you all to breathe. And then you will notice, so when you inhale, then what will happen? When you inhale, then the diaphragm will go down and then your chest cavity will come little ahead. तो आपकी lung capacity बढ़ जाती है, lung volume बढ़ जाएगा, ठीक है, chest cavity की volume बढ़ जाएगी. And when you have more volume in the chest cavity, so of course the pressure in the chest cavity will decrease and outside pressure will be more and air will rush from high to low pressure. So air will rush into the lungs with the help of inhalation. But when you exhale, I want you all to breathe in, to have deep inhalation and exhalation. Then you will notice when you exhale, then this diaphragm will move up. So this diaphragm will move up and then chest cavity will come back. So the volume inside the lungs will decrease, as you would see in the previous slide also. The lung capacity will decrease. So we have more pressure inside the lungs as compared to outside. So the exhaled air will rush outside into the environment by the process of exhalation. Now looking at this slide, you have gas exchange in humans. So gas exchange will take place in alveoli. Well, now what does that matter? Here you can see alveoli structure, which are richly, highly supplied with blood capillaries. So when you get oxygenated air, air with more oxygen from the environment. Then this oxygen will diffuse, will move into the blood, right? And the blood which is already filled with carbon dioxide, the deoxygenated blood, will now push out the carbon dioxide into the alveoli. So this way there is exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen. Oxygen will move into the blood to be taken to the heart, and then carbon dioxide is given out, which is exhaled through the nostrils. And hemoglobin helps in this transport of gases. There is very important question. Oxygen is transported majorly with the help of a pigment called hemoglobin in the form of oxyhemoglobin. But if I talk of carbon dioxide, this carbon dioxide usually travels in the form of, it is dissolved in water and travels in plasma, in the dissolved form, as bicarbonates. Okay, so this is also asked in examination. Then you have respiration in terrestrial versus or aquatic organisms. अगर हम गिल्स को देखें, अगर हम एक फिश को देखेंगे, then you would notice the movement. As you can see this diagram clearly, this one, so respiration in case of fishes, right? So in case of fishes, you would have seen the movement of water will be from mouth. So fishes will take in water which is supplied with oxygen through the mouth, and they will pass this water over their gills. So they will pass this over their gills, where oxygen is taken up by the gills and the remaining water leaves through that, right? Leaves through the gills. So in this process of movement of water from the mouth in through the gills, when it exits, the oxygen is absorbed, right? But in case of aquatic organism, they have to breathe faster. This question is also present in NCERT and is often asked in board examination. Why do aquatic animals they breathe faster? They breathe faster because there is less amount of oxygen which is dissolved in water as compared to the air. So they need to breathe faster to take the required amount of oxygen. Okay. Next is respiration, key importance. Why do we need respiration? Right? We need respiration to provide energy. I have told you that energy, ATP, will be formed by the process of respiration only. Respiration is needed for the growth and repair, maintenance of temperature, and removal of carbon dioxide and other waste from the body. So this was all about respiration in animals. But if we see respiration in case of plants, so respiration in plants will mainly take place with the help of stomata that we have seen in nutrition only. Nutrition part in my previous video, where we discussed opening and closing of stomata. So opening of stomata will lead to the entrance of carbon dioxide into the plants, right? And stomata, besides stomata which are present on the leaves, which are present sometimes on the stem also, there are lenticels. So these lenticels will produce, these lenticels will also be respond. These are small pores which are present on the trunk of the plants. So they will also help in the gas exchange along with the stomata. That is all about the respiration in case of plants. Respiration in plants, you know For respiration, they require carbon dioxide and they give out oxygen. Correct. So this was all about respiration. Please reach out to me, message me, comment in case of any doubt. I'll be happy to clear that. Thank you. Please subscribe my channel.